I have 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 2nd Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
to
to
the
republic
for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
liberty and justice.
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for
for
all.
all.
Okay, thank you. Meg, if you would call the roll.
Sure. Ms. Austin,
Present.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Here.
Mr. Cater,
Present.
Mr. Collegian,
Present.
Ms. Kearney,
Present,
Mr. Mortimer,
Present.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Mr. Sadi,
Present.
Mr. Zaharidis,
Present.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm present also.
Thank you.
Before we start the new business, the public hearing on the proposed regulation change will not be heard. It'll be referred back to the regulation subcommittee for further review. So if anybody here is waiting for that public hearing, it will not happen tonight. First order of business is 44 Cedarhurst Performance Bond Release, Zone R18 for administrative board action on map 89, block 832, parcel 13, of which 44 Cedarhurst LLC is the owner. David, if you would walk us through this, please.
Sure. Back in, I believe, 2017, the board approved a subdivision. And they have finally finished up and they have asked for their bond to be returned. And the process through the subdivision regulations is when someone makes the request, the project is checked, and ultimately the Director of Public Works has to give the okay, and he has done so. So this is just, they've asked for the bond back. I present it to the board, and if you agree with the Director of Public Works, then we should return the bond.
Does anyone have any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Question, Mr. Sadi, if you permission to make the motion. I move to approve the recommendation of the Director of Public Works to release the bond in the amount of $22,600 as the work has been completed in accordance with the original proposal.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you call the roll? Call the vote, I mean. And you're muted.
Oops, sorry. Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
with the motion,
Mr. Mortimer. Is that a with, John?
Yeah, with the motion.
Thanks. Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion also. Thank you. So we have a public hearing closed by April 6th, vote by June 10th. 4852 Broadway, Zone CDD2, petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for re-subdivision in coastal area site plan review for a 3-lot subdivision on map 13, block 142, parcel 6, of which Mark Spergolio is the owner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, Thomas Lynch with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki and Boynton, and I'm here tonight with my client, Mark Romano, who is signed on somewhere. Mark is the contract purchaser of the property at 52 Broadway down in the Walnut Beach section of Milford. This property is located across Laurel Avenue from St. Gabriel's Church. And it's pretty much a straightforward application. It's a application for a 3-lot subdivision of the property. The lots are all conforming to the zoning regulations. And accompanying that is a coastal area management site plan approval application as well, prepared by Ron Wasmer, who's also going to be speaking after me going through the site plan. But basically, the property is currently used as a 2-family house. It's a structure of some 1,700 square feet that was built in the 1940s. My client is under, as I said, under contract to purchase the property. It's located in zone classification CDD2. So as we all know, that's the commercial corridor district coming through Bridgeport Avenue and extending down Naugatuck, just past this property up to the former Costa Azura site. So that in that zone, building lots based on the zoning table have to have a minimum square footage of 2,000 square feet. The configuration, David, if you could, I think it'd be easier instead of sharing screen, maybe if you just showed the plans, we go to the plans first.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So can you see that?
I do, and I think that's SB2.
Yep.
All right.
It's going slowly.
Yeah.
That one?
No, let's go back to number 2.
2.
There you go. So this is the existing site conditions as is configured now. As I said, the 2-family residence that's located on the lot on the corner of Laurel Avenue and Broadway. And David, if we can go to the 3rd page. This is the proposed layout of the lots. Lot number 1 would consist of some 3,300 square feet. As I said, 2,000 square feet is the minimum in that zone. Proposed lot number 2 is some 3,428 square feet, and proposed lot number 3 is 3,126 square feet. If we go to the next page, that shows the setback requirements and the proposed houses to be developed on the lots. There's the setback lines as shown, and then next page, David, page 5.
I apologize. Things seem to be moving a little slow tonight.
There you go. All right, so this is the proposed layout. So the way that Ron has designed the site plan, 2 of the houses would have curb cuts and driveway aprons on Laurel Avenue, and 1 house would have its curb cut on Broadway. And that actually is a good thing because in terms of traffic, 2 of the residences would have ingress and egress on Laurel Avenue, where just 1 would be coming out onto Broadway. The houses are going to be similar in style to many of the houses that are built on the smaller lots along the beach areas, especially East Broadway and going down more into the Cedar Beach area. The proposal will have the houses with the 2-car garage on the ground level, and then there'll be 2 levels of living space above. The first level would be the kitchen and living area with a bathroom, and then the second level above that would be either 3 bedrooms and a full bath, or a finished off area on the top level. So that again, these are all lots that are designed in accordance with the zoning regulations. The houses are designed to meet the setbacks as required in the zone. And if we go, I don't need to go through the documents with you, but in the documents section of the website, all city departments have reviewed the plans and have approved them. The fire marshal signed off on it. Inland wetlands, The police commission at its March last meeting in February did approve the recommendations from the traffic division, saying that the sight lines are excellent in this area. So that's not creating any traffic problems. We appeared, Ron and I both appeared before the sewer commission last week because of the fact that this is located in the commercial design district. The residential standards need to be used for allocating the gallonage, and the sewer commission accepted our application and approved the numbers that Ron had put on the application. Lastly, the plans were submitted to the city engineer. Greg Podolsky had made some minor recommendations for changes, which Ron did submit to Greg last week, and I'm in receipt. I didn't know if it got uploaded to the website, but I am in receipt of Greg's follow-up memo saying that there are no engineering issues. He's satisfied with the layout as it exists. Last point to talk about is under section 310 of the subdivision regulations. This plan does not have open space available. So my client is aware that there is the contribution of a amount of money equal to 10% of the pre-approved subdivision land value of the property to the open space fund. And that can be made a condition of any approval tonight. Typically what happens is we get an appraisal. I already spoke to David today about agreeing on Kurt Frieda to do the appraisal and submit it to David and the board to okay the amount for the open space fund. So that would be done after approval, but it would certainly be a condition of approval. The last couple of pages of the site plan, I'm going to turn it over to Ron just to go through the galley system and the drainage system and the landscaping. But as I said at the outset, this is a straightforward zoning compliant application. So we would ask that you approve this tonight. And I turn things over now to Ron.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor, 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. Tom did an excellent job reviewing the overall set of plans. I prepared the plans. I also prepared the coastal site plan application and report. The only resource that this property is subject to is the coastal flood hazard, so it does lie within a flood zone. The proposed houses are built in accordance with the City of Milford as well as FEMA flood protection requirements. The buildings will be elevated. At the lower floor is a garage and a storage area, and then the living space is well above the required flood elevation. We did present a stormwater management plan to the city engineer, and he found that to be satisfactory. The buildings will be connected to municipal sewer and water. The utilities will be underground. We're proposing reconstruction of the curbs and sidewalks along the frontage of the property. And we've provided landscaping in accordance with the requirements for street trees. One last page in the application is just some details of various civil structures, driveway aprons, galleys. I don't know that it's worth looking at, but there we go. I'll be happy to answer any questions. You can go back and look at the subdivision plan if you wish, or again, I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think one other point, Ron, maybe just to bring to the board's attention, the plans do call for the granting of an easement for the sidewalk on the Laurel Avenue side of the property. You want to just touch base on that?
Yeah, so there's some existing sidewalks, and the property extends out to the curb line as per the original subdivision as well as the street line establishment. So we're providing an easement to the city of Milford to allow these walks to exist on the private property, as well as reconstructing the walks to the standards of the Milford Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Attorney Lynch?
No, I think that's it, Jim, and appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay, David, if you would give us a quick overview.
The applicant is proposing to re-subdivide a 9,914 square foot lot with a single family home. I sit corrected, two-family home, into three zoning compliant lots of a minimum 3,000 square feet in the CDD2 zone that requires a minimum 2,000 square foot lot size. The applicant will be granting the city easements for the installation of public walks on Broadway. There is no adverse impact to coastal area resources on the previously developed site. The board may determine whether the applicant shall make a payment in lieu of an open space donation in accordance with section 3.10.1 of the subdivision regulations. Should the board determine a payment is desired in lieu of open space, a donation appraisal shall be provided by the applicant and reviewed in accordance with section 3.10 of the subdivision regulations.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I have some questions for Attorney Lynch, if I might, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Attorney Lynch. Good to see you again. Could you just explain, the application indicates it's 5 lots, 48 to 52 Broadway, that's now going to be turned into 3 and appears as a subdivision. Can you give us a little bit of history of that possibly?
I think the title search, Bob, showed that the house that was constructed on this property was actually the compilation of some 5 lots on a pre-zoning subdivision map. I believe it was a 1910 map. So that that's the current configuration. So, you know, in terms of coming in for a re-subdivision, we now have to meet the zoning regulations. So the proposal does meet that by having 3,000 square foot lots in the zone that requires a minimum of 2,000.
Lastly, just for the public hearing, and because the public, I see there's some members of public. You talked about the CDD2, which is a 2,000 square foot, which you're above. But you just explained, for example, it appears on all the property lots that it's roughly 4 foot to the side lot. And you just explain what the CDD rules and regulations are regarding that also, please?
Yeah, this under the zoning table that's on the plans, I think it's page 3 of the plans. In that zone, there actually is no requirement for a side yard setback, but if there is one provided, it has to be a minimum of 4 feet. So we're not building to the property line. The houses have been designed to have a 4-foot setback on each side yard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions. Thank you, Attorney Lynch.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, how high are these homes going to be?
They're, Joe, they're the maximum allowed under the zoning regulations. I think it's 40. Is it 40, Ron?
Yes, 40 is permitted. They're typical, the typical of this style with the garage and the 2 floors and the peaked roof usually comes in around 35 feet.
35 feet? And how many floors are livable?
2 floors are livable. There could possibly be some area in the peaked portion of the house. There's some building restriction requirements on that.
Okay, so there's going to be the carport underneath and then 2 living floors above that.
Correct.
And then another 4 or 5 feet above that?
I believe you can place some usable space in the peaked portion of the building. For the subdivision requirements, we are not required to submit building plans prior to them obtaining a building permit. A building plan will be submitted and reviewed by zoning staff as well as the building department for its conformance with the height regulations.
So how many feet can you put in there in the peak?
There's, to say there's a peak, we
Peak is
don't,
probably 10 feet from the eave to the ridge. The midpoint of the roof is what's used for height. You have floor joists and roof rafters, so you could probably get a 7-foot ceiling in there.
7
I'm
foot?
not sure what's permitted if this second in time as far as putting living space in the peaked area of the roof. In many instances, that's where the utilities are placed at this point, the water heater, the furnace, air conditioning units,
Okay. And
keep them above the required flood zone.
yeah,
so,
Tom, what is next to the house on Laurel Avenue, the one that is up, in from the street? What's next to that?
So coming in from Broadway, Joe, on Laurel Avenue,
You're coming in from, to Laurel Avenue, you've got a house on the corner, and then you've got another house. What's the third house?
right, that's the 2-lot subdivision that I got approved for Laurel Dunes. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. That's at 8 and 10 Laurel Avenue. Those are the 2 houses that are on the water.
They're on the water?
They're on the shore, correct?
Okay. All right. So, okay. This is across the street, across from St. Gabe's.
Yeah, this is right on the corner of Laurel and Broad.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And it's across from St. Gabe's Hall.
Yes,
Okay. All right. And those 2 houses they go down to the water, and then these 2 houses would go up to the corner. Okay.
Well,
And
well,
those
yeah.
2 houses are similar homes?
the 2 at 8 and 10 Laurel are much bigger. Those houses are close to 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they taller?
Pardon me?
Are they taller?
No, they meet, again, as Ron said, the maximum is 35 feet to the midpoint.
Okay. All right. And those homes, okay. So these would fit in and they would be the same height. Okay. All
Correct.
right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if it'll make the board feel better, you're going to see whatever the houses are that are going to be built, because they're subject to both the CAM review and a site plan review in that zone. So each house will be coming in individually to the board when they develop whatever kind of house they want to develop. You'll be seeing them again.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, Attorney Lynch, this is the first time I've come across the open space donation. Could you explain a little bit about that? Because I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay, yeah, it did, it comes up on every subdivision application, John. I just had the 14-lot one over on West Rutland Road. I think there was one in November that was approved for D'Amato Brothers down on Naugatuck. So under the zoning regulations, you have a choice. You can either dedicate 10% of the subdividable area to be open space, and David can elaborate a little bit more on what the city considers to be usable open space. It's traditionally open space that can be used for, say, a park area or some sort of a playground, that kind of thing. This is a small piece of property, so there really isn't the availability of taking 10% of this property and making it available for really use by the public. So in lieu of that, then for each lot that's subdivided, 10% of the land value of the property prior to the approval of the subdivision. So it's not 10% of an approved building lot, it's 10% of the land value of the property prior to subdivision, is then divided by the number of lots. So in this case, there'd be 2 additional lots resulting from this re-subdivision. So whatever the appraiser comes in with as a figure that is 10% of the land value of the entire property, it'll be then divided in half upon the sale of each of two of the houses in the subdivision. That proportionate share of the open space fee would be paid.
Yeah, Tom did a pretty good job.
I was just gonna say, David, how'd that sound?
And pretty close, except it's in the subdivision regulations, not the zoning regulations.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I
That's
said,
okay.
it's section, John, it's actually section 310 of the subdivision regulations.
Yeah, I have it here. I'm reading it now, but, so is the actual space, open space being donated? I'm still.
Not in this case. Our proposal in this case is because of the fact that it's only a 9,000 square foot piece of property, 10% of that is 900 feet. I don't know, there really isn't any public use that can be made out of a small piece like that. Then in that case, in lieu of the dedication of an area for open space, the property owner has to pay a fee to the open space fund. And those funds are then used by the city whenever they do buy people's properties and dedicated as open space. The Solomon property out on West River Street, I mean, there's instances of it across town where the town, the most recent one was the one I had for that the city's putting the new convention center or meeting hall place, wherever it is, up on the Platte Orchards up on North Street. That was probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, across from Eisner.
Great, okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I would invite anybody who would like to speak on this to state their name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. So anybody would like to speak,
I have
either
to,
electronically or just wave your hand and David will be the gatekeeper.
okay. Does anyone want to speak? We have, well, it says Laura Marcus, but so I'm going to go with that because that's what it says.
So
Laura?
this is Dana Marcus, Laura's husband.
Okay.
Just a quick question. We live around the corner, 40 Park Ave. And my question for you, Thomas Lynch, is lot number 3 with the zone change, does that become an R5? Or does that still stay a CDD2 by dividing it to 3 lots, that being behind the CDD2 lot?
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer that, but I think that the public is supposed to direct their questions.
Yeah, you're supposed to, yeah, so, but you can direct it to the board and David can answer that.
Yeah, the simple answer is there's no zone change. The zone remains exactly what it is now.
Okay, then my only other question would be, I heard comments about the mid-rail being at 35 for a CDD2. I believe it's 40. Just want to make sure the public knows, or am I wrong?
The height in the CDD2 is 40, and that was
Right.
shown on the chart that we put up.
Right, but everybody kept speaking that the mid-rail would be at 35 feet. Just want to make sure the public knows that this approval would allow them 40 feet, unless there's a stipulation tonight where we make it so it can only be 35 feet.
The board wouldn't be able to do that because that is a regulation. Everybody is entitled to use the regulations.
Correct. Just want to make sure the public understood that it
Yeah.
was 40 feet, not 35.
Correct.
Good point. Good point. Are there any member of the public who would, are you finished, sir?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else from the public like to speak?
I'm looking. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Let me make sure that I have everybody. Wow, everyone is on one screen. Look at that. I guess I don't have to. Going once, I don't see anybody else. Going twice, I don't see anybody else raising their hand. Mr. Chair, there is nobody else who is indicating they want to speak.
Okay, the applicant, you're welcome to close.
No, I think we're all set. And again, thanks for your consideration of the application.
Okay, so the public hearing is now closed. Does anyone on the board have any comments, questions, or a feeling of whether there's any reason we should not vote on this tonight?
I have a question.
Yes, Mark.
If we approve it, does that mean they have to make the open space donation, or do we have to say that we want them to make the open space donation?
I think that's in the motion. I think it should be if somebody wanted to make the motion and they wanted to include that, that would be the motion we would consider. Does that answer your question?
I believe so.
Okay. I guess somebody could make a motion without that as well. But that's, I think it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, that is at the board's discretion. We do not have to request or require the financial donation.
If you don't do that, then you would take land. You do one or the other. There's, I can't tell you, I don't think there's ever been a situation where the board didn't get one or the other because the regulations say one or the other.
So so my question is that if we approve it, we have to approve it with one or the other.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Very good.
I have a question.
Yep.
Go
ahead.
This message from David. Who will be responsible for the sidewalk easement and maintenance and any type of construction after or post?
Well, the city ordinances say that for any sidewalk that's in front of your house, you as the property owner are the ones who are supposed to maintain it. The city reserves the right to go in and do that maintenance and then lien your property for the cost of doing so. In this particular case, they're giving the easement to the city so that the public can go up and down the sidewalk because the sidewalk will be basically it will be on private property. So that's why they're granting the easement to put the to allow the public to use it. And then whoever lives there, just like any other property in the city, the sidewalk's going by your house, it'll be up to you to clear it and maintain it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll hear a motion.
Mr. Question. I make the motion.
Thank you.
I move that this be approved. Petition of Thomas Lynch for re-subdivision, coastal area site plan review for a 3-lot subdivision on map 13, block 142, parcel 6, of which Mark Spigaletto is the owner. The condition would be the applicant shall make a payment in lieu of the open space donation in accordance with section 3.10.1 of the subdivision regulations. An appraisal shall be provided by the applicant and reviewed in accordance with the section 3.10.1 of the subdivision regulations.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Nancy Austin. Thank you. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you call the vote?
Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Colichin,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
I'm against the motion.
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. The proposed regulation change, as I stated earlier, will not be heard tonight. It will be referred back to the regulation subcommittee for further consideration. Old business, I see none. Liaison reports, I see none. Subcommittee reports. The regulation subcommittee has discussed 2 items that we would like to circulate to the various stakeholders, the local neighboring towns and the regional land use council. They are, I guess we will ask David to review them one at a time and vote on them one at a time.
Okay, so the first one is, I hope you're seeing it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We have what are called 642 merger rules, where here we go. So if you have a house, you're in it's 1990, you have two pieces of property, you need 7,500 square feet of property, and you own two 5,000 square foot lots next to one another, they're considered merged under our current regulations. By changing this regulation, if you had two lots next to one another and you didn't, currently, if you didn't use the lot, it wouldn't be merged. So the change in this regulation would be basically getting rid of this regulation. And if you have two lots that are next to each other, whether or not you used the lot or didn't use the lot, the most common thing that people use lots for is your garage is on one lot and your house is on the other one. You could, by getting rid of this regulation, you could develop that second lot. You could get rid of the garage. You'd have to provide parking under the on your house lot, and then you'd be able to sell that second lot instead of having it merged. So that's basically in a nutshell what this particular proposed change is. So it would encourage a little more development and density, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. And just to review, this is not, we're not voting on the regulation. We are voting to send it around and get feedback. And then if the feedback is not negative, we would have a public hearing on this. I personally have seen instances throughout my life living in Milford where you'll have a street with 10 houses on one side and 9 houses on the other, all of the same size, and the houses are pretty much the same. But because of this merger regulation, that person is now kind of held to a higher standard, is penalized. And we've looked at other cities and towns, and it is not uncommon for a municipality not to have a merger regulation like we have. I think that it has hurt a lot of people, and I personally am in favor of taking this out of our zoning book.
Okay, so why don't we move on to the other one, Mr. Chair?
I think we vote on each one.
Okay.
Yep. So is there any other questions or comments from the board?
Chair, Mr. Sadi here. I just want to indicate I'll be abstaining from the vote as I did down below the subcommittee. I will listen to the members, but I'll be abstaining when the call is made.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Can I ask a question? I'm a little unclear. We're not voting on them. We're voting whether to be circulated, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Because I need to understand this a little more. I need to think about it because I've seen a couple situations myself that I just need to understand this better.
Okay. Okay, seeing, is there anyone else have a question or comment? Seeing none, I would hear a motion.
I'll move to circulate it.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. If you would, please, Meg, call the vote.
Sure. Can you just identify the motion in the second?
The motion was John and the second was Jim.
Thank you. Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Cassignoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
Abstain?
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion?
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion,
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
Abstain?
Mr. Zaharides,
Against.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion. We have a count. We have 2 abstains, 1 against. Is that correct?
That's, Mr. Sadi abstained. Hang on a second.
I also did, Meg. Brian Cleveland.
Mr. Collegian abstained, okay. And Mr. Sadi, no, sorry, who was voting against?
Marks.
Zahari.
Okay, thank you.
So that's, so the motion carries. So would you do the next one, David?
Yeah, the next one is to authorize circulation of a draft regulation amendment 21-2, which has to do with just updating our flood hazard and flood damage regulations. As you may recall, a few years back, we brought up to date our flood regulations that have design flood elevation instead of base flood elevation. This is just to fix the portions of the regulations where we forgot to make those changes. So it's basically housekeeping.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
The question, I move to authorize the circulation of draft regulation amendment 21-2, section 5.8 flood hazard and damage prevention, section 9.2 powers and duties.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if you would, please call the vote.
Ms. Austin,
With the motion?
Mr. Cassignoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion?
Mr. Mortimer,
with the motion,
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion?
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. Next on the list is approval of the minutes. We have a motion.
hey, Jim,
Yeah,
can I ask a question first? Because I'm just not real sure. We go through things, but we don't discuss things sometimes after the fact. I noticed a couple of people voted against things, and I don't disagree with them. I'm just curious sometimes their thinking, their thought process, it maybe enlightens us. Or are we not supposed to do that? Can we not discuss things amongst ourselves?
I'll defer that to David. What's your feeling?
So first of all you're being asked to do for these reports is to either allow the regulation to be circulated or not allow it to be circulated. If you allow it to be circulated, ultimately it may come to a public hearing. If you don't allow it to be circulated, then the proposed issues, I guess, they wouldn't be circulated. They would die. The key thing is, if you want to get into the weeds about what the regulation ultimately is, the public hearing forum is the way, at that point to really start discussing it. But keep in mind, these proposed regulation circulations come from the regulation subcommittee. So if the regulation subcommittee didn't think that they were worth circulating, then they wouldn't be brought to you for your
And
approval.
I think to further expand on the question, David, is it appropriate for a board member, probably at the public hearing level or at any level, to say, okay, I hear that you're saying you're against something. Can then one member ask another member why? Just to enlighten us all, maybe.
If I think if a board member wants to share their thoughts and feelings about any application, it's up to that board member to share it. I suppose you could ask, but I don't think they're under an obligation to say one way or the other. It's good to build a record. If people are supporting something or are against something, it's good to have on the record the reasons why someone votes one way or the other. But I don't think we can compel anybody to tell us.
No, I get that, but I'm just even simple. Is it okay to just ask? You're not compelling someone. You're just asking, and if they choose to explain themselves, fine. If they choose not to, it's their choice. I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to put anybody on a spot. I mean, I'm trying to learn. So if somebody disagrees with something, I kind of like go, well, why? Not that I'm thinking they're wrong. They might be right. I kind of like to know why. Maybe they have a valid point. Maybe I'm missing something. We kind of make decisions based on piece of paper. I don't know enough about it. Maybe somebody lives in these areas that maybe understands it better than I do and can explain another way to look at it. I've turned around on a lot of things from public, hearings where I've heard some people say things and I've changed my opinion because of what I heard. That's just my point. I didn't know if legally, I mean, sometimes you say we can't talk, we can't ask questions. I don't know what we can legally say.
The key thing is that you're able to talk and discuss anything that's brought before you in this public forum. You can do that. You can have a discussion, obviously, about whatever's on the agenda. The concern is you can't have discussions outside of the public forum amongst yourselves. That you can't do. You cannot. You have to do it in the public forum.
I understand exactly what you're asking, Jim, but I don't feel after a has been taken, discussion should ensue. I feel we have that opportunity to discuss, questions, concerns and stuff prior to a vote, but once a vote's taken, we kind of have to move on. That's my personal opinion, because we do have ample opportunity to ask questions of applicants, of David, of our board, and we're able to discuss. And at that point in time, we can express our opinions. But once a vote's taken, I think it's a little
yeah, you're right.
I feel you need to move on.
Yeah,
that's my own opinion.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
And that's a good point, except for both of these instances where people we're against kind of the rest of the people. They're just votes, like one is to circulate it to, so we're going to make an actual decision about this change by what we know now. We're not making a decision. We're just deciding that. And at the house down on Broadway, we're going to have designs coming at us that we're actually going to make the decision on. This is not making a decision on the project, just whether it should move forward. So I'm just curious, is there something I'm missing that, I guess I'll try to remember to bring this up when it comes up, or hopefully they bring it up, say, I don't think we should do this because of this. So that would be okay if they do that, I guess.
Okay. Okay, next order of business is approval of minutes. I have a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, no changes. Without exception, motion is carried. I do not have a chair's report. Is there a staff report?
For those of you who signed up for the Connecticut Bar Association program that's this weekend. Yeah, this is a reminder, it's this weekend on Saturday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Take care,
everybody.
everyone.
Take care.
Right.